Okay, here I am again, Bill. And I just want to talk about my plans for the future. I'll be 78 in July. And there are going to be some changes. You may have seen some of my blog posts recently to the effect that I'm going to make a major restructuring in 2022, and that a lot of my activity I expect to shut down in early 2022, which is about a year from now. If you go back, and let me just state very quickly for what it would be. The main issue is that my doaskdotell.com domain name expires December 2nd of this year, in about 11 months, or 10 months anyway, toward it, almost the end of 2021. And without more commercial viability, without more obvious sales of the books, and that's the only thing that really happens commercially with it, or more ad revenue or something that has some commercial substance, I don't really think I'll be able to renew it. A lot goes into that decision. And so what I'm going to do is use my nickname, Bill Boushka, as sort of my trademark starting in 2022. In fact, I won't even use John W. anymore, except that where I have to on Facebook, and I'll make it very clear that my brand is using my middle name, William, which becomes Bill, and that's the way I'm going to be known. So and there will be only one major website where I'll go into things in depth, and when I'm working with other people, and where there's some commercial potential for doing it, and possibly contract work, or possibly data tracking is an idea I've thought about. But unless I come up with a commercial use for doaskdotell, which there are a couple of possibilities, data tracking might be one of them, I won't be renewing the mark in December of this year, which would mean that this site that's been up in some form like this since 1997 has changed a couple times. It used to be called HB Pub and so forth. This goes away in December. The blogs, these 16 blogs on Blogger, would go away in late January of 2022, about a year from now, January 26th. And the 4 blogs on WordPress would go away as they are, and they would be replaced by just one named after me. And then there might be another site on Minds or on a blockchain site, and I'm going to greatly downsize and consolidate all my presence more to things that are responding to real needs and that pay commercially. Now, I do have a lot of projects that might support the activity that I would have, which will be a lot more focused. I am working on a screenplay which includes the material from the books as backstories, and is set in a science fiction setting on a space station or an O'Neill cylinder. That's called Epiphany. I'm not using the doaskdotell name anymore. There's also other material from the 3rd book, which could be called 2 Road Trips. And there's also the idea that you could make a film based on my expulsion in 1961 from William and Mary, from the point of view of how my parents would have experienced it. That was very unusual, and it could be made very interesting. It could be something that a Netflix would want, or that a YouTube Originals would want, or Hulu or something. We're thinking about much more professional production, getting the equipment, getting the tripods, getting the cameras, getting back up to speed on using Final Cut Pro, and actually making a commercial film. The science fiction scenario sounds like it's big, almost Christopher Nolan in scale, but something like the story about William and Mary from the viewpoint of my parents as a docudrama, that could be done with my resources, and that might be something that would be viable commercially, that a Netflix would want. So that's some of the thinking. That might be something I could work on once if the pandemic slows down and I can go down there and work with people in person again down in Williamsburg, it might be something I could pull off. I also have the novel, which I've had for many years, called Angel's Brother, which has some similarity to the screenplay. And there's a virus in the novel, and the virus, which was imagined about probably back around 2003, 2004, sometime in that time, is very much like the coronavirus, but it has some other properties which God would help us if they ever come true. But a lot of what's in here has actually happened, which has been a reason it hasn't come out. And then I've got music, the 3 piano sonatas. The third is by far the most interesting. It would really work if I had a virtuoso pianist, and I think the second would also work. And there's a cantata based on some other music that I've composed, which is also exists in some short pieces. Obviously the easiest thing to pull off and get things performed is to perform the short pieces and to start out small. Of course, that's true. The whole Kreisleriana idea of Schumann. Well, that's a good idea for getting other people to play it. So that's what my plans are. Again, the presence I have now, I've had it essentially since I started the first book, since essentially 1998, even 1997. But it's got to change after these 25 years. The changes in our culture, the shock of the pandemic and the moral paradigm, the suddenness with which we have to deal with the idea that any one of us is walking around is like a lethal weapon walking around in a crowd. Is just the whole way our society is probably going to change because of this makes the activity I have seem out of place now. And so, yeah, I think it has to change. And that would be in 2022. Thanks for listening.